Okay, today I'm going to talk about the Battle of Gettysburg. The war, as you know, is between the North and the South. Most of the fighting took place in the South. Robert E. Lee, who was the commanding general of the Army of Northern Virginia, which was a Confederate army, had invaded the North once before at a battle called Antietam, which is in Maryland. He wanted to try it again. So in of June of 1863, he moved north into Pennsylvania. And he wanted to move there because there was a lot of farms in Pennsylvania, and he wanted the farms to be able to get food to supply his 80,000 person army. And what ended up happening is he ran into some Union soldiers near a town called Gettysburg. And he ran into these soldiers who were cavalry. Cavalry are soldiers that fight on horseback. And fighting started on July 1st, 1863. If you look at the map that's on the screen, on the first day of fighting, the red represents the Confederates, and the blue represents the Yankees, the Union Army. After the first day of battle, the Confederates had pushed the Union soldiers back through the town of Gettysburg into kind of this place here that says Cemetery Hill. And that's what happened on the first day. The Yankees had to pull back through the town. When we get to the second day of battle, the Union Army has formed kind of a fish hook type line. Now, a couple terms you see on here is flank. You have right flank and left flank. The flank of an army is its end. So this is the Union right flank because it's its end, and this is the left flank, its end. In the middle, they just call that the center. So what happened on the second day of battle, and it didn't really happen until late in the afternoon, is the Confederates started attacking here, 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 and just kind of working their way down the line. And after the second day, not much really happened. The only thing that really happened on the second day as far as Minnesota is concerned, let me switch this to blue. At one point, a Union general by the name of General Sickles moved the Union line out here a little bit farther because he thought it looked like better ground. But what happened when he did that is he left an opening. You can see right here, he left some openings. The Confederates saw that, and they're like, we are going to go into that opening, and that could be dangerous for the Union. So an officer grabbed the first regiment he could find, and that was the 1st Minnesota Regiment. And on your notes that you read, it says the 1st Minnesota Infantry. On that day, they sent the 1st Minnesota in. They came in and they stopped this Confederate attack long enough for reinforcements to come and help. There were 262 brave Minnesotans that charged into thousands of Confederates to try to slow them down. In less than 10 minutes, 215 of those soldiers, 82% of the 1st Minnesota, was killed or wounded. That was a high loss of men. And after this battle, the 1st Minnesota would just be done because they didn't have enough soldiers left. But they saved the day at Gettysburg. And after the second day of fighting, the Union armies remain in their their fishhook line right around here, and the Confederates then were back here along Seminary Ridge. And that's how they ended day 2. Day 3, Lee came up with an interesting plan. He decided, I've attacked the left side of the line. I've attacked the right side of the line. So I'll go back to this one. So on the first day, let me erase this. On the first day, on the second day, Lee had attacked here a lot, and he attacked over here a lot. He thought the middle is going to be wide open. So he's going to send his soldiers over a mile of open ground to attack the Union center. Well, by the time they get there, there's not a lot left of his men. So he attacked the middle because cannons were destroying his men. And when they got closer, the Yankee infantry opened fire with their muskets. And it was a failed attempt at trying to capture the middle. And that's what happened on July 3rd. So there you can see trying to attack the middle right here. And it was a failed attempt. So first thing I want to do is show you a quick little video that talks about the Battle of Gettysburg.
Battle of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg took place on July 1st through 3rd, 1863, in and near the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This battle was one of the most important battles of the Civil War for the North. Robert E. Lee had invaded the North and was trying to defeat the Union Army once and for all. However, the Union Army held him off and sent him retreating. This was a major turning point in the war. The Confederate Army was led by General Robert E. Lee, along with Generals Longstreet and Pickett. The Union Army was led by General George Meade. The battle took place over 3 days. On the first day, the armies were still coming together. The Confederates outnumbered the Union the first day and caused them to retreat through the town of Gettysburg to the south side of town. General Lee wanted his men to continue to attack and finish off the Union troops. However, his men delayed and the Union had the opportunity to dig in and set up their defenses. By the second day, the armies from both sides were now at full force. The Union had around 94,000 soldiers and the Confederates around 72,000. Lee attacked and there was fierce fighting throughout the day, with both sides taking heavy losses. The Union lines held. The third day, General Lee decided to make an all-or-nothing attack. He felt that if he could win this battle, the South would win the war. He sent General Pickett with 12,500 men on a direct charge at the heart of the Union Army. The famous attack is called Pickett's Charge. Pickett's men were defeated, with over half of them injured or killed. General Lee and the Confederate Army retreated. The Battle of Gettysburg was the deadliest battle of the Civil War. There were around 46,000 casualties, including nearly 8,000 deaths. General Meade and the Union Army were exhausted and had many casualties and deaths of their own to deal with. They did not pursue Lee's army. President Lincoln was disappointed that Meade did not pursue General Lee, as he felt the entire Confederate Army could have been defeated, and the war ended that day. Later that year, on November 1st, 1863, President Lincoln attended the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. His speech was short and lasted only 2 minutes. Not much was thought of the speech at the time, but today is considered one of the greatest speeches ever given.
So I don't expect you to remember a lot of the details on what happened on the first day, the second day, the third day. I just want you to know it lasted 3 days and it was intense fighting. And as you saw in that video, the bloodiest battle of the war. There are many, many battles, over 300 battles that were fought during the Civil War. But this was a big one. The South lost and really could never recover. For the next 2 years, they fought more of a defensive battle or a plan, and they just really couldn't, like I said, couldn't recover from this. So this is the turning point of the war. So I want to show you one more little video that does talk a little bit more about the Battle of Gettysburg.
In June of 1863, Confederate General Robert E. Lee took his Army of Northern Virginia into the North for the second time. The Union commander, George Gordon Meade, was in pursuit. They would ultimately bump into each other here at Gettysburg. Behind me is the town of Gettysburg, around which the Battle of Gettysburg will be fought. The Battle of Gettysburg started by accident. Literally, troops bumped into each other. General Lee heard that Meade was pursuing him, and Lee concentrated his army. The Union vanguard is already here as well, and they're going to bang into each other north and west of town on McPherson's Ridge. It's an intense fight. Ultimately, the fight will grow until north of town. You're going to have the Union 11th Corps fighting against a corps under a guy named Richard Ewell. In the end, you're going to have 30,000 Confederates outflank and whip 18,000 Union troops who retreat back through town to Cemetery Hill and to Culp's Hill, where we stand now. And for the next 24 hours, all that happens is that both sides bring the remainder of their troops here until the Yankees have maybe 90,000 troops and the Southerners have maybe 70,000 troops. And the Yankees form in the shape of a fishhook. And we are right here on this fishhook at the end of Culp's Hill here. The Union line will continue along Cemetery Hill behind me, Cemetery Ridge, and eventually end over on Little Round Top. The Southerners line up around that line, basically formed on the most distant tree line you can see way off in the distance, okay? If General Lee needs to go from one side of his army to the other, it's 6 miles. Meade only has to go 2.5. Meade is also on the defensive. Meade has more men on a more compact line, and Lee is more strung out, and Meade finally has the home field advantage. On the second day of the battle, Robert E. Lee decided to take 20,000 troops under James Longstreet and attack the Union left, and take maybe 5,000 to 10,000 and attack Culp's Hill. But the attack on the Union left flank took place first. The Southerners are going to have to get over there without being seen opposite the Union lines. Ultimately, the Southern line will attack what's called an echelon, where a couple of brigades move in, and then a couple more, and a couple more. And ultimately, Longstreet's men will make fierce attacks. First they'll fight at Devil's Den and Little Round Top, and then onto the wheat field. And then they actually have found a gap in the middle of the Union line, troops that had gone to reinforce some of the fighting in other areas. But the Confederates can't quite push through it, because wherever they show up, Union reinforcements from inside Meade's strong fishhook position arrive and push the Southerners back. Ultimately, the bloodiest fighting at Gettysburg, the second day on the south end, will come to a close without a decisive result. And while Longstreet is attacking the Union left flank, the Confederates are beginning a huge artillery bombardment on the Union right flank. Here on Culp's Hill, that bombardment wouldn't do anything. The Confederate attack doesn't come for long, until long after, actually, the fighting on the Union left flank is mostly over. Ultimately, the Southerners will try to attack East Cemetery Hill. They capture part of East Cemetery Hill. They capture 9 cannons. This is the key Union position at East Cemetery Hill, and it's about to fall to the Confederates. But again, Union reinforcements push the Confederates back. The Confederates have a little bit more success here on Culp's Hill. Culp's Hill consists of 2 hills, an upper hill and a lower hill. This is night fighting, very odd in the Civil War. The Confederates easily capture the lower hill, but they're unable to capture the pinnacle of Culp's Hill. The next day, the fighting resumes, where the Confederates try to capture Upper Culp's Hill. The Yankees return with even more reinforcements, not only recapturing their old trenches in Lower Culp's Hill that they had lost, but maintaining their possession of Upper Culp's Hill. On the third day, having already tested the Union left flank and the Union right flank, the Confederates opted to attack the Union center. And this is what we now know as Pickett's Charge. Pickett's Charge is going to take place in the fields behind me, and on the afternoon of July 3rd, you're eventually going to have a great moan go up from the Union line. This is after a huge artillery bombardment, but the moan comes not from that, but rather from the beauty and pageantry of a great Confederate assault, 12,000 troops advancing across that field. You can see over my shoulder. The Yankees decimated with long-range artillery, and as they reached the road, Union reinforcements poured to the area. The Union flank bulged out, so the Confederates are going to get flanked, but nonetheless, they push on impetuously, gain some of the key stone wall in the area. The Yankees are able to, however, push them back. 6,000 of the 12,000 soldiers who made the attack were killed, wounded, or captured. Lee lost 23 battle flags in that attack, more than he'd lost up to that point in the war combined. Robert E. Lee horribly failed in Pickett's Charge, but the next day he still stayed here and through the rain across the fields, faced George Gordon Meade, said, "Come on, Meade, attack me." Meade did not take the bait. That night, Robert E. Lee pulled back through the mountains. 9 days later, escaped back into Virginia, and the Civil War goes on for almost 2 more years.
So, as I said, the Battle of Gettysburg was one of many battles fought during the Civil War, but it was probably up near one of the most important because, as I said before, the South just couldn't recover. So this is basically the beginning of the end for the Civil War. The next video I put together will have pictures of the Battle of Gettysburg. Thank you. Take care. Bye.